Meeting of the Lake Boon. Thanks, Dan. I just want to call the meeting of the Lake Boon Commission to order. The meeting is being conducted via Zoom. The members will be participating remotely, and everybody will be on mute until public comment and or the presenters are presenting. With that, the agenda has been sent out to our community. It's been posted in both Hudson and in Stowe. And the first item on the agenda is the review of the meeting minutes from the prior meeting. So, Dan Barstow, would you like to?
Yeah, this is from the meeting of October 23rd, briefly
Yes.
about the buoys, drawdown, the budget, and other business. I believe you both reviewed this, and I move that we approve it without changes.
And I second that.
I've reviewed the minutes and I have no changes. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Next item up on the agenda is the budget update. Conray, are you taking that, or Dan, are you taking
No,
that?
I've got it. There are two parts of the budget. One is the general fund, and in fact, we haven't spent anything on our general fund yet. We certainly will have some expenses coming up in the spring, and maybe there's a backlog of a couple, but that still leaves us a balance of $4,800 in there, which should cover our anticipated expenses for the rest of the year. The other part of the budget is the weed treatment. We're in the third year of a 3-year contract. It ends June, although we can carry over as long as we need into the next year. And a little bit later, Red's going to talk about the progress on the new contract and where that is. But our balance, we anticipate getting an additional $18,000 in invoices from Solitude for this year, and that will leave us a balance of $6,857 at the end of this contract. And that's exactly where we want it to be.
Dan, you said that that'll be a remaining of $6,857 after Solitude. Is that correct?
And that's after Solitude.
Okay.
We currently have a balance about 24,000. Once we deduct 18,000, it'll leave that 6,000.
And do we have any anticipated invoices that are going to cut into that other than the boat?
Well, the weed treatment that I'm talking about now is separate from the general fund, which deals with the
Okay.
boat.
Oh, that's just the weed fund we're talking about.
Right, right.
Okay.
The first part, the general fund, we still have 4,800, and in the weed treatment, at the end, after Solitude has billed us, we'll have 6,857, which we can carry over into the next year.
Okay, fantastic. All right, that explains it. Any discussion?
Only, no discussion.
Okay, Dan, there's nothing, doesn't sound like there's any decision to be made here. It's just a budget update. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have one discussion item, I guess. We have money, we have things we need to buy, but we won't do it till spring. That's why we haven't touched our budget yet.
Right. Yeah, I think it's prudent budget management, and we've got our balance, so we can deal with needs that come up in the future.
So Conrad, I think when we have our next meeting, one of the things that you and I have talked about is the buoys, so we can just table that till next meeting.
Yes. And we didn't put bills on this agenda, but I have been remiss. I didn't submit the bill for shrink wrap, but I will.
Okay. So Dan, we'll just have to have a meeting for anticipated expenses and any outstanding invoices.
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion on the budget update? Okay, so there's no decisions to be made. So can we move to the next item?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to discuss weed management for the coming year. Red, are you prepared? I know this was
Sure. Yeah, it's short and sweet. As Dan mentioned, we're coming to the end of the last 3-year contract that finishes in June. So I have a new RFP that I'll be handing in to the Stowe Administrative Department next week, and it pretty much looks like the same 3-year RFP that we did 3 years ago. Covers non-invasive weeds in the lake with a few different herbicides that are used. When we get the proposals back in, I anticipate potentially using one more herbicide we hope to push out the duration of the sonar treatments. So we have to do that less often than 3 years. But everything worked well last year. We got the weed management we expected, and we're going to do more of the same this year.
Red, thank you. I have a question.
Sure.
We need to put warrant articles on the spring, both spring town meetings.
Okay.
We've got to figure out, anticipate what our expenses are moving forward.
Okay.
We always have to get those warrant articles ahead of time, so when the bills come, we have money.
Yeah. Well, I think we can get the RFP out pretty quickly, at least to Solitude, if not them plus one other, and request inputs back in. When would we need it by, Connie?
Soon. I think the town meetings are in May. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, I need to check in. We still have in stow. We still have time to do it. I need to find out the exact date, but we can base it on. I think Solitude gives a pretty reasonable estimate of what they think they're going to bid, and we can base it on those numbers if we don't have the actual numbers.
If you can let us know, Connie, when we need it in, and we'll make sure when the contract goes out that we need the submissions before that time.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on weed management? Okay, Red, wait, Connie, were you gonna say something?
Just a quick one, I guess. We have a lot of new people on the audience, and I'm Conrad Wharf. I don't think people know us by sight. Some of the newer people.
We got two Dans.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe my name is shown in the chat. I'm Dan Thoreau.
Yeah, and the other one is Dan Barstow.
Right, and Dan Thoreau is the chair. I'm the clerk.
So welcome everybody to the meeting. Any other comments on weed management? Okay, Red, I'll speak for we do this all the time, but again, the effort that you put in individually, and you and the Lake Boon Association with David Gray, and the effort that you put in is not gone unnoticed by everybody around the lake. If it wasn't for you and the folks that continue to volunteer to help this lake be clean and safe and healthy.
Very important to the health of the lake.
I will say again how much I appreciate everything that you do. And that extends to, I know David Gray's on as well, and what the Lake Boon Association does is invaluable. So really appreciate what you've done over the years, Red, and looking forward to a great spring and summer.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo that. I spoke with Red a little while ago. I said, Red, I've got so much on my plate because I usually handle these contracts, and you were perfectly willing to do it, and I greatly appreciate that.
Takes a family, takes an army,
yeah,
takes a village.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so unless there's any other, Dan Barstow, is there any other discussion on weed management, or is that topic?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the definition of the basins, especially for the new people joining who I haven't seen before. We just want to remind people how we define the basins of Lake Boon. So Dan, do you have the graphic?
Yeah, let me bring it up here. Let me get it for you.
It's all right. There it is.
Do you see it now, full screen?
No, it's still partial.
It's in slide view.
All right, so let me switch that. Sorry to keep you waiting here a moment.
It's okay, Dan. It's not always instantaneous. The Lake Boon, Healthy Lake Boon Initiative really took over, and you can see how beautiful the lake has become. Oh, there we go.
Now, do you see it full screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll mention that I have a series of slides, and when you think it's appropriate, Dan, I can go through those. But you wanted to mention about the definition of the fourth basin, and here's the map that you put together.
Yeah. So the people on the phone, we're going to be discussing Basin 4 tonight, just so we're all looking at and referencing the same basins. Basin 1 obviously is the main basin that buttresses the Pine Bluff Recreation Area. Basin 2 is the transition area typically that people go through to get to Basin 1. Basin 3 essentially is that after the choke point in Basin 4.
Says he's already apologized to the victim.
If you're not speaking, could you please mute your phone? If you're not speaking, could you please mute your phone? Thank you. The Basin 4 is the basin that has the public access. Over the last several years, we've tried by using buoys and other things to alert people to the potential dangers of Basin 4. The traffic in that area has been increasingly congested. And there are, is a concern in that area that we've tried to address through buoys that has not really had the effect. So tonight we're going to be talking about specifically Basin 4. And if you're not speaking, would you please mute your phone? Thank you. Dan, so with respect to Basin 4, I think this has been well established where it is, but is it on the map as when people come into the lake, will they know what Basin, on the public boat ramp, is it laid out there as well, or is it?
Well, we need to, we've always talked about upgrading that entry sign post outside near the entry ramp, and we would certainly, when I think we should redo it in the spring, and that would include a clear map of where Basin 4 is.
Okay.
Small comment, please. Basin 3 is where the public ramp is. There's no public ramp in Basin 4.
Are you sure about that? I mean, Conrad, you've lived here long enough.
I believe that the public ramp is off Sudbury Road, which is on Basin 4.
Yeah.
And 3. Yes, I'm very sure of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to do Bluetooth.
Okay, well, we have a dispute. You're saying that the public ramp is in Basin 3, Connie?
Yes, so if we come through Basin 2, we go through the Narrows, and we go down into Basin. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. The map. I'm deceived. No, I withdraw that comment.
Okay,
I see what
good.
you did in the map, but the public ramp is in fact on Basin 4. You're right.
Okay, thanks. I think that clarity needed to be added just because it buttresses Sudbury Road, and that's considered to be the public ramp. But I'm glad that you mentioned that, kind of, because I just want to make sure that everybody is now familiar with how we mark the basins. Okay.
Excellent.
So
Thank you, Dan.
we agree that these are the basins. Okay, Dan. So now that we've defined the basins, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to talk about the next item on the agenda, which is the proposal to amend the Lake Boon rules regarding docks and moorings in Basin 4. The purpose is intended to promote boating safety, preserve safe navigation, protect water quality and lake bed habitat, prevent congestion in the narrow Basin 4, and maintain open water access for lake users. As we mentioned, over the last 3 years, we've had a fair amount of feedback from boaters and from homeowners about the congestion in Basin 4, the dangers that propose it, the potential hazard that is, in that area, relevant to that area, as well as it's a beaver habitat that along the north shore of Basin 4. So there's been an express concern about that particular area for health and safety of the lake, which is why we're addressing it. And so we're going to be talking about a proposal to amend the rules regarding Basin 4. The rule that we're talking about adding to Basin 4, I'll read to you specifically, and then Dan Barstow, I'm going to ask you to walk through sort of the rationale for how this came to be. But the language that we're proposing is that no docks, moorings, or anchoring system, float, swim platforms, or other structures for securing watercraft shall be placed or maintained within the waters of Basin 4 of Lake Boon. So what it would do is it would freeze Lake Boon Basin 4 to where it is today, and this prohibition would not apply to any docks that are lawfully existing in Basin 4 as of the date of the adoption of this amendment. So any homeowners that are concerned whether or not this affects them, if they have an existing dock and they've been on the lake, it does not affect them. This affects new placements of docks. We also don't want people who are coming off of the public ramp to be mooring boats permanently in Basin 4, which we have had some instances where people limit the ability for people to egress into Basin 3 and Basin 2 because of where they're moored. So this is going to address both of those issues. With that, Dan Barstow, is there, related to either the rationale or the language that I proposed, is there anything that you would like to show?
Yes, there is, but I also just want to mention that with the agenda of the meeting, that there will be a time for public comment. It's very specific during this meeting, and that'll be after I do my presentation. Presumably, maybe we'll have some discussion, but just because there are people here, they might wonder.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Okay, so I'm going to walk through, first of all, for anybody who's lived on the lake for a while, you know that the Fourth Basin is really a beautiful, beautiful part of the lake. It's very serene and, natural habitat. It's a great place for kayaks to go exploring and for the wildlife. But it does have some serious problems of algae and weeds. This has been a course of study over really 20 years, but most recently we got a Mass DEP grant, a 3-year study, we call it Healthy Lake Boon, that involves some serious data collection at various levels of the water column in all the different basins. We established a science advisory board to monitor the risks. And this came to the fore when the Cattell property went for sale, and there were a number of issues about clear cutting and trees. And so for this development, this scientist advisory board considered clear cutting of trees, a wetlands buffer, docks and powerboat traffic, how ecologically fragile and shallow this basin is, and also some emerging issues of PFAS, and of course the significant algae and weeds that we've been treating as well as we can with herbicides.
It's actually, Dan, it's the one area that is treated the most. That's the heaviest weed accumulation in the lake.
Right. So the Science Advisory Board recommended buffer zones, no new docks, and limited boat traffic. This led to some discussion in the review in the Hudson Concom. But also, just to be clear, we had a very well scientifically defined monitoring process, extracting some of the weeds to look at them and doing some variety of data management. David Gray, who is here tonight, may be able to comment on some of this. He was part of the major leader of the team collecting the data. And Kirk Westfall, who is the head of our science board, is frankly a world-class expert in lake and water treatment. We used this in creating a variety of lake models. The data, I won't go through it all, but included water flow to see how the patterns were around the lake, surface runoff, and chlorophyll and dissolved oxygen, temperature, and so on, all with citizen volunteers. Recently, there's also been significant study of the impact of PFAS. This relates to the Fire Academy, which is near that basin, and the monitoring of the flows of PFAS from their very high levels at the Fire Academy, and a concern that this could spread. I won't go into the details of this map, but it is the levels of measured at the top and the middle underneath the at the Firefighting Academy was like 10,000, and then it spreads out towards the lake. But that's not really our primary issue. It's more the weed treatment and the clear cutting. So here's an aerial view before this property was acquired. This shows all the green, the buffer zone, the pristine nature of the Fourth Basin. This is after the clear cutting and before the construction of the homes began. You can see that there is a bit of a buffer along the lake. That was one of the requirements in the Hudson Conservation Commission, but it does significantly impact runoff and other issues relating to the lake. So the major issue we dealt with first was this buffer zone. We referred to the Massachusetts Wetlands Buffer Zone Guidebook and the guidelines, and also the Hudson Conservation Commission rules. And long story short, reached an agreement with the developer to have a 50-foot vegetative buffer with no structures and a 30-foot buffer that could only have native plants. This was embodied in a restrictive covenant, although there's been some discussion about that in the Hudson Conservation Commission. So here is, cutting to the chase here, this shows the entire area. You can see in the lower left is where the new development is. Then to its right, you can see the entire area of the fourth basin. You can see how it extends from the bottom part up through and then across over to where the ramp is. And I'll mention that up above that is the Halleck Point, an area that was set aside as a nature preserve through local funding as part of our protecting of the lake. So the question comes, what if all the homes in here install a dock? And the concomitant motorboat traffic, it could be a significant issue. You'll see their homes at various points along the shore of the fourth basin, and if each were to install a dock, this is what we'd have. And this, you can see that part of the lake just cannot sustain, in my opinion, and in the Science Advisory Board's opinion, cannot sustain this kind of traffic. It's exceptionally shallow, all the weeds, all the issues that we've talked about. So the area we're considering is in here, directly abutting, along the fourth basin. The Moore folks have asked to put in a dock that's on the third basin, and depending on how our discussion today, that would not be included because it's not in the fourth basin. Also, Mr. Murphy has just received approval from the Chapter 91 process, and that would be for a dock, a shared dock here. That's gotten approval. And then there's the public ramp here. But all the rest would be, if we were to pass this, many of them, frankly, it is so shallow, I don't know how they could even put in a dock, but that's the issue that we're dealing with. I'll just mention one other thing. Here's the Halleck Point, the area that we set aside with community purchase for environmental protection. Part of the deal that was getting the two homes that bought their property. They helped support all of this as a protected area. And I'll also show that this is a property lines map along that entire fourth basin. But all of this, we have to remember, is because we have a serious problem with algae and weeds, and this whole section of the lake with the clear cutting, with the reduced buffer, with any increased motor traffic would just be a very problematic spread to the lake. It would destabilize us as part of the lake and so on. I'll say that many organizations support this effort. We've worked with the Lake Boon Commission, that's us, the Lake Boon Association, which is the member organization, the Stowe Town government, who had fiscal responsibility for the grant, the Stowe and Hudson Concoms, Brown and Caldwell were contracted consultants. We had citizen scientists working with us, our science clearing committee, coordinating committee, and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And this has really been going on for many years, even before 2002, but that was the first formal study. I won't go all through all the dates, but just to note that this has been a serious long-term effort. And then this is the language that Dan Thoreau has suggested we might want to use, but this concludes my presentation.
Dan, that was very helpful. Just to clarify for the people on the call, this does not affect docks that are in place or approved.
That's correct. Assuming that's what we decide, but that's
the current proposal grandfathers existing docks, because Dan, on your chart that you showed, there were some red docks where there are existing docks. So I just want to make sure that we clear that.
Right. Actually, you bring up a very important point there, that the ones it's the lake's frozen, so I couldn't go down and actually inspect. I believe that there is one dock here,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
believe there is a dock here, but there is not one up here. There's not one up here. I don't believe there's one on this property either. I may be mistaken.
There's actually only one on the right side.
Okay, maybe this one.
A little bit closer, yes, but there's no upper one, and there's, I think, one where the other red one is closer to
Okay.
the Howard Point. Yep.
So
So there.
thank you. Thank you for your comments. I just want to make sure that we're explicit on this point, that this does not affect the docks that are in place, nor does it affect the 2 docks that are pending approval.
2 docks are pending approval.
If you're not speaking, would you please mute your phone? Thank you. So docks that are pending approval or docks that are currently in place are not affected by this. This is future development. So we want to make sure that that's clear in anticipation of some comments that we may receive. So once again, no docks, moorings, anchoring system, float, swim platforms, or other structures for securing watercraft shall be placed or maintained within the waters of Basin 4 of Lake Boon. The charter of the Lake Boon Commission allows us to regulate activities on the lake, which includes establishing rules related to the placement of docks and watercraft mooring systems within the waters of the lake. And so it's under that authority that we would be changing this rule. And again, the intent is not to remove existing docks or limit existing docks. It's to simply address a concern that has been raised even before the development related to the safety. I don't want this to be viewed as a reaction to the settlement. This is a discussion that's been going on for a number of years related to the safety and the health of that particular basin. So to be absolutely clear, as Mr. Barstow pointed out, this discussion has been going on for years. This isn't a recent development or discussion. But with spring coming, this is why it's timely. So Dan, unless you have any more comments, Dan, are you done with your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so what we're going to do at this time is we're going to open this up for public comment. What we're going to ask, though, because of the number of people on the phone, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We're not going to be engaging in any debate. We will have a dialogue as a commission once we have the feedback from the people who have joined the call. We appreciate the effort that people take in after 7 o'clock at night to attend, and we're open to comments. And if anybody would like to comment, please raise your hand.
Yeah, and can I just add that there are a couple of people that that we asked to join us because they represent an organization. There's Debbie Edelstein from the Hudson Conservation Commission, Dave Sawerski from the Lake Boon Association, and David Gray with the Scientific Advisory Board.
Okay, so let's try to get through them as we go. It looks like Calissa had her first hand up, so we're just going to ask if you can keep your comments brief. Thank you.
Sure. I 100% support the idea of having these docks not be allowed in the Fourth Basin. And I appreciate you guys doing the work that you've done, but it's going to be a disaster. And it just needs to be sort of clamped down.
Thank you for your comment.
I don't know what she said.
Does anybody else have a comment that they would like to add?
Yes.
I can't see everybody.
Jay Petrie has his hand raised.
Thanks. This is John Petrie. Yes, we're up on the First Basin. My only question / comment, I know the large Toll Brothers estate has a couple of lots that are on the Third Basin that was visible on your map. I just wanted to double check or ensure, I don't know, their rules, or if there's any kind of homeowners association, to make sure that none of the properties on the Third Basin would somehow be able to put in a communal dock with boats for all of the other Toll Brothers homes that are actually on the fourth basin, and they'd simply put all those boats right up on the third basin. I have no idea if that's even possible, or if they have any kind of homeowners group, or if somebody with a lot there would be allowed to do that. But I just want to double check that.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Looking for a hand now. I know that
Aaron's had his hand up for a while, actually.
Oh,
Aaron
I'm
Moore.
sorry. Yeah, I can't see everybody, so please
Rich
feel
Weiss
free.
is maybe next.
Okay.
I'd go with Aaron. He's had it up for a while.
Can I go? Just, I had a couple of quick comments for what actually one.
Aaron, just first say your name.
I'm sorry.
Aaron Moore. I just want you to say your name. Everybody should say their name before they begin.
Aaron Moore. Just one quick question. The language that was published in the notice in Hudson is different than the language that Dan's presentation concluded with. So that may create a problem if you intend to vote tonight, because I'm not sure that there was proper notice in Hudson. But Commission can figure that one out. I'm also wondering a little bit why this is being done on 2 days' notice. I mean, for a lot of these people who own these parcels, this is a major event, and a lot of them don't even know about this, I think, because they maybe haven't moved in yet, or they don't live in Hudson full time, and so I'm not sure why this needs to be done on 2 days' notice. So I'd ask that at least we continue the hearing before a vote, so that everyone's allowed to be heard.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Who is next?
You want to try Rich Weiss?
Yeah, hi. Rich Weiss. In the spirit of what Aaron was saying, I want to thank you. The lake is beautiful. I think you've all done a great job maintaining it and making it a beautiful place. You say that it's not motivated by the development there yet. Dan, your great presentation started with the scientific studies started when the property was sold, and all the talk has been talking about limiting the property that is very much related to the Toll Brothers installation. I don't represent Toll Brothers. I'm just a homeowner within the property, but it seems like we're not getting a say in it based off of some longstanding background. And I would just love that, to Aaron's point, if there is going to be a vote, I think that people that live on those properties should be able to have more of that background than the 2 days notice.
Thank you for your comment. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Westberg. I'm on Sudbury Road, so I'm in Basin 4. I actually just had a quick question. I think I know the answer, but I have a kayak that I just basically drag in from shore, and wanted to be clear that that is fine, that I don't have any physical dock out there, but I want to make sure it's okay to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Is there any other, Dan or Connie, do you see anyone?
Yeah, Tom Westberg, you just talked, right? And nobody else has got their hand
How
up.
about, I'm just wondering if Debbie wants to speak?
Turn on my audio. Thanks, Dan. I'm Debbie Edelstein. I'm the chair of the Hudson Conservation Commission. I just want to say I appreciate everybody's input on this. These projects all, of course, come to the Conservation Commission for approval, and they also go to DEP for approval. And obviously, some docks require Chapter 91. So there are 3 levels of regulatory bodies that look at this every time a dock is proposed. And we take the condition of the lake quite seriously when we look at the docks. We look at the impact on the land. Obviously, the water is not in our jurisdiction except for water quality. So the people who come before us get a fair hearing. I just want to say that. But we do look seriously at the impacts. And I will say that the Conservation Commission is responsible for getting the 50-foot buffer zone around the new development there, and the 30-foot native plant buffer. So there is a bioswale around the entire development, buffering the development from the lake. And there are conditions that the Toll Brothers have to meet and that the property owners are going to have to meet because that it's part of that bioswale is a deed restriction. So there is a built-in buffer around that development. I think that's probably all I need to say.
And that would limit people's access, just for clarification, that would limit people's access to get to a dock anyway?
They are all permitted to have an a non-hardened path down to the water through that buffer, right? But it will, yes, because putting in any steps will get really hard scrutiny from the Conservation Commission and DEP because this is designated as a great,
Were there limitations on when the approval was granted for that development? Were there limitations granted for those property? I mean, in order to get permission for that development, were there any restrictions put on the deeds?
The deed restriction is that 50-foot buffer zone that must be maintained in perpetuity, and the bioswale must be maintained in perpetuity.
So it would be fair to say it would be.
Can I get clarity on that comment? I'm sorry, I don't want to step out of line.
No, we're not taking public comments. Thank you.
Okay, just looking up our deeds.
No, we're not. Sorry about that. We're not taking public comments. So with respect to that, with that buffer zone, you're to permanently place a dock there would require somebody to encroach upon that buffer zone.
Well, again, every house is permitted a walking path down to the lake.
Recording in progress.
So that gives them access, right? It's a non-paved walking path down to the lake. They would run into trouble with the commission and with DEP if they wanted to put in, for instance, steps or any structure on the land, because that 50-foot is a no disturb zone. So, and that's built in.
Okay.
And that bioswale must be maintained. So, yeah.
Okay, that's very, very helpful. And
I will add that in the development process, the developer looked at the possibility of a communal dock and decided against it. So.
And I wanted to ask if Dave Sawerski from the LBA or Dave Gray from the Science Committee wanted to speak.
Yes, Dave Sawerski here, President of Lake Boon Association. As Dan mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of people working on the lake for a lot of years. The basins 3 and 4, I grew up on the lake, so I've been here for almost 50 years or so. And the basins 3 and 4 have changed dramatically. And with us knowing and seeing that, we got together and we actually fundraised and we were able to purchase Hollock Point to help save this portion of the lake. So it's not like this is something new. This is something that is ongoing. All the wildlife that is down there is disturbed a little bit by the boat ramp, but that's, something that's been there for a while. So, that's grandfathered in my opinion, but it's just a pristine area. And to keep it that way, I really think this needs to go through.
Thank you, David. I think Maria had her hand up for a while.
Thank you, Maria Makrovska, live on Fort Basin. Quick question on the procedure and how the voting will happen. Maybe you can just refer to where I can find it. I'm new to this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Rich, Rich Weiss, do you have more comments? Rich, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I can find the mute button. To Debbie's point, it sounds like there's already 3 separate layers of regulation that are regulating any docks. I don't understand the need for a 4th. I understand keeping the lake in pristine condition, but it seems like there's a lot of people looking out for that there's a lot of regulatory process to go through. I do want to get some clarity, and I think it'd be helpful to get some long-term clarity on the bioswale, because our deeds do not mention the bioswale existing past the construction period. We were under the assumption that the bioswale, the buffer zone is permanent, yes, but the bioswale was meant for the construction thing, and I just want to make sure that we're all operating on the same information. So if there is other information pointing to that, I would love to be able to make sure our residents can see that.
I will check on that. In any case, it's a 30-foot zone of native plantings only. So, that in effect maintains the bioswale.
Okay, are there any other hands? I'm going through there are a number of people on the call. I just want to make sure that we don't.
I'm not able to raise my hand.
Oh, Frederick, it looks like Frederick is raising his hand.
Yeah. Hi. As I heard that you mentioned three major problems. One is the heavy traffic, motor traffic. Then you mentioned the PFAS thing, and also algae. So I was wondering, by not allowing new docks, do they do anything for these problems? I just can't get a sense of blocking new docks will solve the problem. For example, if you say that you don't want any more motor traffic, maybe you can put a sign, between Basin 3 and Basin 4 that no motor boats can go into Basin 4, or you can just stop the public ramp, right? So by restricting new docks, it doesn't solve the problem. And also PFAS, as you mentioned, that is not a problem of the local development. And as for algae, new docks, I don't know, restricting new docks will solve the algae problem.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Frederick. David Gray.
Thank you. One of the concerns that we found during the study in the last 4 or 5 years is that the phosphorus, which is the primary nutrient which causes algae and aquatic weeds to flourish, is the highest in the fourth basin. And a lot of that tends to settle down into the sediment. And it's really not the docks, but it's the propeller wash from power boats that would accompany the docks, which would stir up that sediment. And eliminating docks doesn't solve a problem. It prevents it from getting worse, because stirring up the sediment tends to disperse the phosphorus to allow it to spread more. And incidentally, it also tends to allow the PFAS to disperse and move further around the lake. And so there is some real advantage to keeping that as quiescent as possible so that we're not stirring things up.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, but then you can.
Thank you, Frederick. We're not engaging in debate. Thank you, Frederick, for your comment. Thank you for your comment. Aaron Moore.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that the swale does stay, but the sediment barriers go. That's all.
Aaron, I think Mr. Weiss was asking that question. Ms. Weiss, did you hear that comment?
Yeah, that's helpful clarification. Okay. Thank you.
It looks like Robert has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I closed on September 9th. I'm 6 Shoreline Drive. I'm definitely on the water. And Toll Brothers never said to me that you can't put a dock in. I mean, they just never said that. And one of the reasons I bought here on the lake was so that I could kayak. And I went out on like October, and I came back. I went the full 1.5 miles up and back. And I got stuck in the mud getting out of my kayak, and I got hurt very, very badly. I mean, I had I went to the doctor. I had to get on antibiotics. I scratched my leg so terribly bad. It's not right. This is not right. I got hurt very bad because there's no way for me to get into the water with my kayak. It's just not fair.
Thank you, Robert. Were any other hands up? We'll give it one more minute if anybody. Okay, Frederick.
Yeah, I heard the comment about the power boat. It looks to me that this power boat's causing the problem. Then why don't we just ban the power boat?
Correct. Thank you.
Why you ban the docks? It's the wrong solution.
Right.
Thank you, Frederick. I can't tell if that's Steph. Is that a Steph or Stephen C?
It's Stephanie.
Oh, hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to make a note here that when this development was proposed, there was a lot of meetings and I joined some of them. And it was a discussion about the docks, and the Toll Brothers knew that docks were not going to be permitted because of that buffer zone. So shame on them for not informing you guys before buying that property. But this is something that we need to do to preserve our lake, regardless if you believe that it works. The science and the research that people have done have shown that it would help, and we're trying to prevent more boats in the lake. I've lived here pretty much my whole life, and I've seen the development of this lake, and we need to stop at some point. And this has to be something we do. So thank you for trying to get this to be permanent and can't be changed later on.
Thank you for your comment, Stephanie. All right, I'm going through. Dan or Conrad, do you see any other hands up?
I see Stephanie just talked to Aaron. Aaron's hand is still up.
Aaron, do you have more? Aaron, was that from the last time, or do you have more comments? Oh, you're on mute, Aaron.
Sorry, I got muted. I just want to respond to that. I strongly disagree that there's a ban on docks. If you read the minutes, the head of the planning board said there was not. And during the NOIs for the lots, it was clear. Everybody agreed with that. The developer was asked to do a ban on docks, and they refused. So, there is not a dock ban per se. What we wound up with is what's in the restrictive covenant. That's all.
Thank you, Aaron.
So Dan, I do not see any other hands up.
Okay, with that.
Could I speak? I can't figure out how to get this hand thing.
Oh, yeah, sure. Who's speaking?
This is Ben Folsom. I live over at 547 and 549 Sudbury Road on Basin 4.
Okay.
I just wanted to state briefly that we have a couple pre-existing docks. I just kind of wanted to get that on the record because I saw that map earlier with all the, the red rectangles showing there was no docks there. There are some docks over there, which is, in Basin 4. And then as far as my opinion on these new docks for the new houses at the Toll Brothers project, I don't really see how anyone here could really think it's right to restrict, waterfront properties from putting a dock in. I mean, if they have waterfront access, they should have just about the same rights, or they should have the same rights as all the other waterfront properties on the lake.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Okay, Calissa. Calissa, you're on mute.
I totally disagree with that. I don't go into Basin 4 with my boat because it's too shallow, but it's just a really beautiful area. And I think we should totally make sure that it remains just as pristine as it has been.
Thank you, Calissa. Okay, so with that, unless there's any other last minute comments, we'd like to close off the public comments so that we may have a dialogue. Obviously, you were going to have this dialogue in public with the commission members. I did, for those of you who think I was maybe not listening to you, I was taking notes on your comments, and we're going to be addressing the comments during the public meeting. So you will get an opportunity. Calista, did you have another comment, or was your hands just still up? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, with that, I'm gonna end the public comments portion of the meeting, and we will have a dialogue now among the commission members regarding the feedback that we've gotten on the proposal. And all of you are welcome to stay and listen. The first one that I want to bring up is whether or not we have in any way infringed upon the Massachusetts open meeting laws. The Massachusetts open meeting laws are very clear. 48-hour notice. It's published in both Hudson and in Stowe. We held it after 7 o'clock, so no one could say that they were not able to attend because of work. And the Lake Boon Association emailed everybody with the dial-in information in the agenda. So with respect to the challenge on the open meeting law, I don't believe that we've in any way encroached upon or violated anything related to the Massachusetts open meeting law. With respect to the actual language, until the language is adopted, every language is draft. So the purpose of having a dialogue is to finalize what the language will be. Specifically, we want to make the rules accessible such that they're simple to understand and they conform with the charter that we have of the Lake Boon Commission, which is we're responsible for the waters of the lake. For those of you who don't know or are new to the community, Lake Boon borders two towns. It borders Stowe and it borders Hudson. As a result of that, the state of Massachusetts empowered the Lake Boon Commission to govern the activities on the lake. That includes the placement of docks on the lake. It includes the activities on the lake, including regulating boating and other activities on the lake. So we're within the rights of the commission within our charter to regulate what happens on the lake. So Conray and Dan, unless you have a different opinion related to whether or not we have violated any or encroached upon any of the Massachusetts open meeting laws, please weigh in.
I think we're good.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I mean, the way things work is that you can't accommodate everybody, and no public body can accommodate every single person. So we try to make it as accessible as we can. And we also welcome emails and communications outside of the meeting if we're not doing our job to cover agenda items that the public would like to hear about or are concerned about. We're an open book, and all of these meetings are recorded. And our job is not an easy one, and it's not an enviable one, because invariably somebody's going to be upset about something, and somebody's going to be happy and somebody's not. And so unfortunately, that's just what happens in a community. And so in this one, what we're trying to balance is years of concern that people have expressed, and people have expressed on this call, about the health and safety of the lake. We're talking about the health and safety of the lake itself, but we're also talking about the safety of the people who operate on the lake. And that Basin 4 has been a problem as long as I've been on the lake, with his hidden hazards that cause boats to, including my own, break propellers, run aground, get stuck, depending on the water levels and the time of year. Basin 4 creates a unique problem that other basins that are in choke points don't create, and that's speed. People go into Basin 4 with speed, and they don't understand the hazards. And so the more you multiply the number of boats in Basin 4, it represents a unique hazard that doesn't exist in Basin 1, 2, or 3. Basin 3, you could argue near the end of that basin, there's some hidden hazards there with the trees, but the people who are in that area already have docks. And so Basin 3 is not up for debate. The way that we have defined the basins, Basin 4 is a unique beast. And so that's what we're talking about. So I'd like to raised for dialogue, Conray and Dan Barstow, the question about is eliminating docks entirely overkill, meaning like, so if our goal is to not have power boats, then how does docks tie to that? So if the docks were limited to kayaks, the issue is that we have a public ramp. You can't eliminate power boats in Basin 4. And we would never, at least as long as I'm on the commission, we'd never even consider that. Number one is that public access is necessary for us to get certain funding. And that public access has been shared for generations for the people around the community. That public launch also allows people who live adjacent to the lake or across the street from the lake to have access to the lake. So eliminating power boats in Basin 4 is not an option, and it wouldn't even be considered by anybody on this committee seriously. So then the question becomes that was raised by some of the public comment was, so I bought a property, I've got a buffer zone, I want to put my kayak in the water, but you're stopping me from getting a dock. So we've got to consider that there's a buffer zone already in place. And so putting in a permanent dock is going to create a host of problems, because how are you going to get to the dock and what are you going to put on there? But let's address the issue of, I need a dock because I have a kayak. Conray, Dan, what's your feedback on that argument?
This is Conray. So docks equal activity, and that's the real issue. I don't remember, that's muddy down there, and if you put a dock in, it's really not a very swimmable part of the lake because of the mud. So anybody, if we get a lot of docks down there, we're going to get more activity on the lake, which is going to stir up more sediment, which is going to release more phosphorus. It's really a compounding problem. So it's not really about eliminating power boats. It's really about eliminating activity on the shore, in the lake, which can create, water quality issues.
Dan Barstow?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything insightful new to add.
Okay. The question came up a couple times, and I want to make sure we're absolutely perfectly clear about this. If you have an existing dock or if you're pending a dock approval, none of this applies to you. So if your property has a deeded dock already, even if that dock is in disrepair, this doesn't apply to you. If you're in Basin 3, this doesn't apply to you. We will make sure that we understand what houses have docks so that we have a list with the commission, Dan, of what those houses are. I know a couple residents have chimed in about their concern, but existing docks, this does not apply to them. The one comment that was made related to 4 layers of regulation actually strengthens the case to pass this rule. If you have 4 governing bodies expressing the same level of concern, it actually strengthens the position of the commission that activity in the Fourth Basin need to be limited. If we said that there were 2 governing bodies of regulation that said Basin 4 is a free-for-all, and 2 governing bodies said Basin 4 should be regulated, then we'd have a problem. But from what I hear from the Lake Boon Association, from what I heard from the Healthy Lake Boon Initiative, from what I heard from people who've been on the lake for years, this has been a consistent problem, or a consistent dialogue related to regulating Basin 4 in particular, for the reasons that Red and David brought up. So while it sounded to me like the dialogue on 4 levels of regulation seemed like it was very autocratic and bureaucratic. It actually strengthens the position that this commission needs to look harder at ensuring that the intent of those other regulations is upheld. And I think that having the Hudson Conservation representation in today's meeting strengthens that as well. I don't think it sounded to me like it was the intent of either Stowe or Hudson to have unfettered development on the lake. Regardless if you bought the property expecting that you were going to be able to put in a dock or not. I bought a house on the lake, paid a lot of money for it, and we changed rules that affected me. And we changed rules that affected Conray, and we changed rules that affected Red, and the hundreds of other people that live on the lake. Simply owning a house on a lake doesn't give you the right to not have rules change or affect you in some way that's unfavorable. That's just the part of living in a community, that we have to regulate the health of the lake for everybody in the community. So I understand and I do have sympathy for it, but with respect to regulations, it seems like the regulations have been very consistent. Dan, Barstow, Conroy.
If I could just add on to that, we've been studying the lake for decades. The serious study funded by the Mass DEP began before this Lake Mont development came in. It's something that covered the entire lake, and it was a response to serious algae spread throughout the lake. I mean, these are problems that a lot of people have worried about, and it seriously affects the overall health of the lake. Even our herbicide weed treatment has been inadequate to deal to this, and the Solitude and the Science Advisory Board have consistently said that this fourth basin, especially in parts of the third, but the fourth basin especially, is the highest point of risk that we have to protect. Now, I'll say that this has come up in numerous contexts, but most recently during this development, the Lake Boon Association submitted an extended report to the Hudson Conservation Commission about the challenges of the clear cutting, the need for really they recommend a 100-foot buffer, not a 50 or 30, and how to do this. And what we ended up bumping into was that the Conservation Commission has authority up to the edge of the lake. And that meant, okay, so no part of the dock or any other structure could be on that land. That's as far as the Hudson Conservation Commission could do. So then it was, well, can the Chapter 91 deal with things? And that Chapter 91 reviews all approvals for docks. I've been through the process. I understand it's a process. And Chapter 91 is essentially only looking at the footprint of the physical structure of the dock. They're not looking at the entire lake or the ecological impact. So what it comes down to is who really takes responsibility for the health of the lake, and that is the LBC. And hence, this is our role. We've always managed it in terms of the weed treatment. We've managed it in many other ways. So that's why this layer here is essential, because the others are just piecemeal. We need this sort of cohesive picture. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Conrad, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. And I've been on the lake for 47 years, so I've seen a lot too. I've been on the commission since '93, so I've got a few years of going through all these things. First thing is, some people commented about common docks. It's against our bylaws already. Can't have one. We have a bylaw already that talks about, if you have a dock on the lake, you can't rent that out. But I believe that bylaw already would prohibit common docks, especially large ones. The other thing is that I need a little help here, but didn't we photograph that whole basin last summer? Dan,
did we do what?
Did we photograph all of Basin 4 last summer?
I've taken some over the years. I forget what I took last summer. If I haven't, I'm sure other people have.
Survey of the lake, looking at all the docks all around.
Oh, and all the, oh yeah, we did that. Yes.
And I believe that included Basin 4.
It did.
Yes.
So we already have photographic history of what's down there. So we've got some records to support that. What I've heard from most people is support. You know, and you know, like our chairman said, you know, everybody's not going to be happy no matter what we do. So I heard mostly support for the new bylaw on the lake, and it's a bylaw, and that bylaw is enforceable by us and by the police.
The other, and I just want to make sure I get all these comments because people deserve to have a response and understand that we're trying to do the right thing, even if it's not popular. I would like to express the what the limitation does. It doesn't stop anybody from pushing a kayak into the lake. It doesn't stop anybody from launching a boat at the public ramp. It doesn't stop anybody from going to a part of the lake where people allow people to launch their boats. And I'm looking at you, Conray. So if you buy a property on a lake and you have access to a lake and you have a boat, you still have the ability to use that boat. It's just not convenient to not have a dock. So that is a big convenience when you can walk down to your dock. But when you have multiple docks in an area that we've already deemed to be ecologically fragile and unsafe, so we've kind of glossed over the fact that boats have run aground there. That combination has to be weighed against convenience, because we're not saying to the homeowners you can't access the lake. We're saying that that part of the lake is not going to be convenient. Am I understating that, Conray or Dan? Am I overstating it?
No, I mean, I think you're accurate. I mean, Lake Boon is a great pond in the state of Massachusetts. As a great pond, we have an obligation to have a public ramp. We've met that obligation with that public ramp. That ramp property was donated to, I don't know who it actually was donated to, but it was donated to become a public ramp. It might actually belong to Stowe Conservation, but I'm not sure. So if you have a house near the lake and you have a boat and have a trailer, you can bring it over and put it in at the public ramp. The Basin 4 is not a very good place to go boating. It's just too unpredictable. It's too shallow. It's too many hazards. I mean, I've lived here for almost 50 years, and I don't go down there because I like to. It's just not a good place to go. Every time you go down there, you're either going to break a propeller or you're going to, bad things happen down there. So I stay away. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, I'll add that in fact that the Fourth Basin is in serious danger of eutrophication, or of really becoming a sludge instead of, a basin. It is shallow, it's full of weeds, it is if there were that much traffic in that area, it would put the entire area at risk over the long haul, over the short and long haul.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting in this dialogue is the people that have been on the lake for years and years and years know what you just said is true. And I think that new owners to the lake, it took me 3 years to even learn how to park my boat, let alone understand what was going on the lake. It takes a bit of time to get the wisdom of how the lake lives, meaning the lake itself. And we're not talking about taking away someone's boat who has a boat. We're not talking about asking somebody to remove a dock who has a dock. We're talking about new placements in an area where the people who have been on the lake for years and years, and in some cases decades, recognize a problem on the horizon. Meaning, like, to Conray's point, what I heard reflected in the public comment was concerned about the future of the lake. And that future of the lake is based upon what people have experienced in the past. And my concern about overweighting new people to the lake is losing the wisdom of the people that have been here for years and saw what happens when you get a number of boats in Basin 4 and you churn up that sludge and you have people, going into that basin or out of that basin at a fast clip. And I'm not going to mention names, but some of the comments from people who were supportive of this, they know what it's like when that gets churned up, and they know what it's like when it's shallow, and they know what it's like over by Ben's house when the beavers are out there chopping down trees. And I think we have to, I really do think we have to respect the new people to the lake and welcome them to the lake. But at the same time, some people don't know what they don't know. Meaning, like, if we installed 20 docks, would everybody on this call who was against it be against it if all 20 docks were put in? Or would they recognize what we're trying to prevent, which is the destruction of Basin 4?
Dan, I'd like to make a note that we put a caution buoy into Basin 4 3 seasons ago because we were worried about people down there not exercising proper caution in that basin. So we put a yellow caution buoy in. And if I remember right, that was, you encouraged us to do that. So we've been maintaining a caution buoy in that area for at least 3 seasons. It's coming up on, I think, is the 4th one. I could be wrong in the number of years, but so we recognized the problem down there many years ago.
So the time for public comment is over. For those of you who are chiming in, you can appreciate that this is not an easy issue for people to resolve, for everybody to come to a resolution that's going to make everybody happy. But unfortunately, like we said, it's not the objective is to make everybody happy. The objective is to do what's best for the lake and do what's best for the entire lake community. I do want to, however, go back to the idea of the kayaks, because we have been biased towards powerboating. At least the commission has been viewed by some people as being biased towards powerboating and not respectful of people who swim and not respectful of people who kayak and use sailboats and things like that. So why don't we spend a minute talking about kayaks? So is there a compromise, or is there an alternative for kayaks or non-motorboats?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question you're raising, Dan, and that some of the speakers recommended. I mean, if we go back to the issue, what is going to protect the lake? And the issue of powerboats stirring things up is clear. The issue of lots of traffic in there is clear. But a kayak or canoe or other hand-powered system is far less disruptive to the lake. And even it could be argued that having a better way to get to your kayak is disruptive to the buffer. I mean, it preserves the buffer. To go back to the negotiations with the town about the buffer, the ruling, the Hudson Conservation Commission said no structure. That means no access to the buffer in that structural zone. No, you can't put the edge of your dock on that land. And so we'd need to figure out how, if we were to say that you have a lake path, if you have a sort of a safer, more solid way to get into kayaks or canoes, maybe that's okay. but I just hate that to be a slippery slope
Yeah,
that
yeah,
leads to oh well, how about a small power boat? How about a canoe with a
yeah.
motor? How about and then it goes from there.
Well, I think there's more to it than that, Dan. Remember, you have the buffer zone, then you have the no disturb zone. The no disturb zone, the Concom allowed a path to the lake. You can't take a big kayak or a big canoe down a path without disturbing the vegetation. It's just not going to work. So I think you've immediately got a problem launching any type of boat, even from the shore, because of the current regulations that are on those deeds.
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Weiss was pointing out, that we've kind of got multiple layers of protection of the lake, and that if the Hudson Commission is saying that buffer zone was intended not to disrupt 30 feet from the lake, what constitutes disruption? Does pushing your kayak down to the lake constitute disruption or not? And then when you get to the shore of the lake, you can't mount a dock that extends onto the shore. You just can't, according to what we understand that no disturb zone is. Even if we said you could put a dock in, what would you mount it to? Because that dock can't extend onto the shore because it's in the buffer zone.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, if we did nothing, if we literally did nothing and didn't pass a single rule tonight or in the next month or so, I still don't know how you would get a dock in there, because you have to disturb the buffer zone to get to your dock.
I think you're correct, Dan. The whole idea of a no disturb zone, means it's got to be pretty much left alone. And the Hudson Conservation Commission was very careful to say you can have a path to the lake, not hard surface, not improved, a path to the lake. Some of those bankings are pretty steep, so if you can't go ahead and put steps in because of the law, of the covenants you have on your deed. So
I'll say that in the most recent Hudson Concom meeting, where one of the people who's trying to put a dock in proposed doing that, the one that would go into Basin 3, said, well, there already are some steps going down there, so all we're doing is putting the walk plank, the gangplank, onto those steps. And the Hudson Concom has not ruled on this, but was saying, well, is that really a structure? And it's a very slippery slope. The idea of having no structure means no part of the dock can touch the land. But I don't know as we can count on, you were asking, Dan, if we did nothing. I don't think we can really count on Chapter 91 or Hudson Concom having the authority to stop it.
Respectfully, I'm thinking in the alternative. I'm thinking about the people who are looking at us and listening to us dialogue, and I don't want somebody to say, I wish one of those three guys would have thought about this. So for the purposes of dragging the meeting on so that we can brainstorm and make it evident and transparent to everybody on the call that we're trying to do the right thing, that's why I'm engaging in this dialogue right now.
Can you just clarify, Dan, the process we would go through? Would we take a vote on it today and that's it? Would we have another meeting?
Right now, what we're doing is we're going to go through the commentary so that it can inform the language, if the proposed language.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then from there, we'll decide whether or not we'll modify the language, pass it as written, or decide that there are additional fact finding that needs to be done. And it sounds to me like what we're circling a little bit on right now is how does somebody get to a dock through that buffer zone? And as far as I can tell, provided that you're not throwing your kayak around and knocking over trees, you can get your kayak to the water.
A small one.
What'd you say, Conrad?
A small one.
Yeah, but if you have a 25-foot kayak and you got 4 people and you're going through there and you're knocking over trees and stuff, shame on you. But what I'm saying is that I think what I heard from the Hudson Commission, and maybe this is what we got to circle back with them offline, is what is the intent of that buffer zone? If the intent of the buffer zone is to protect 30 feet from the lake, I don't see how this rule would allow anybody who would otherwise have a dock not have a dock, because they wouldn't be able to get a dock anyway. And the only thing this does is it reinforces what the Lake Boon, Healthy Lake Boon has been talking about for years, what the Lake Boon Association has been talking about for years, and what the Hudson Conservation Committee has been talking about for years. And what this isn't, put it this way, Conrad, this isn't coming out of left field. This isn't like the 3 of us, dreaming up an idea of how to limit people from getting on the lake.
So all those are all good comments. Our authority is limited to the water. We go from the shore's edge out. And all those comments you made are appropriate and correct, but that's not our authority. Our authority is taking care of the lake. That's why we do drawdown. That's why we do weed management. That's why we put buoys in the lake. That's why we manage kind of patrol. There's so many things that we do that are all designed, for the health and safety of the lake. As soon as you hit that shore, we have no authority or responsibility, actually. So,
right, but to be harmonious, if the intent of the 30-foot buffer is to not have structures, then this rule, if we pass it, doesn't do anything other than strengthen what already exists. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't take anything away.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't already there.
I agree.
And that's what I want to make sure that I'm clear on, and the people on this call are clear on. This entire discussion about Basin 4 is not an aberration dreamt up by the 3 of us. This is a pattern that has been going on for years, and we have a 30-foot buffer zone. We have concern about the health and safety of the lake and the health and safety of the people on the lake in that basin. And you have essentially those 2 things meet at the shoreline, as you said, Conrad. So it sounded to me, and I can't open up public comment again, but it sounds to me like the Hudson Conservation Committee is in lockstep with where we're at.
I believe you're correct.
Dan Barstow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to officially speak, and I know Debbie is here representing, she's the chair, but, from all the conversations we've had in the past, it's gone on for years, they share the concern about managing the health of the lake. They've kept track when we need to do the weed treatment and so on. And so we've had this dialogue trying to make sure that our domains that meet at the shoreline are in line. And everything I've heard from the Hudson Conservation Commission has been that we have to be careful with the lake, and they recognize the challenges here. Their authority comes up to the lake, and ours takes over from beyond that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I want to go back then, Dan, and read the proposed language again, based on our dialogue. Yes. Okay.
Hold that a sec.
Okay. Let's read the language. No docks, moorings, anchoring systems, floats, swim platforms, or other structures for securing watercraft shall be placed or maintained within the waters of Basin 4. So a swim platform behind a boat, is that prohibited?
No, but a float would be. So we used to call them rafts. So if you had people put rafts 20 feet offshore so they can swim out to it. I'm assuming that swim platforms in this language actually means rafts that are floating on the lake.
So, but those are anchored, right? So does it need to, is that is the swim platforms and floats and anchoring systems too ambiguous?
So let's create if I lived there and I wanted to do a workaround, what would I do? Well, I'd get a floating platform, put it in at the public launch, float it over in front of my house, and tie it to a tree.
Right. That's exactly what I'm thinking, Conrad.
And I think what we're saying, what they've got to find out is that is not a good place to swim. Dan, as you remember, when you first came to the lake and enjoyed Basin 4 intimately,
yeah,
not a place you want to go swimming unless you could stay right on top of the water. That mud is.
I had mud up to my chest when I jumped in.
Yeah. So, this is not a good bottom there for swimming or anything. So I think that if the people bought a house there thinking that they were going to use Lake Boon for swimming, they're going to be disappointed. And they'll be disappointed whether we do this or don't do this, because it's just not swimmable water down there. Not to mention that there are creatures that like that mud. So, the little leeches and stuff, there's lots of those down there. So the only thing I can think of is when on swim platforms, we might define that a little bit better. It could be any floating platform.
It should be, but maybe anchored.
Well, you already said that. You said no knocks, moorings, or anchoring systems. They're all prohibited. So you can't take a float down and anchor it under this bylaw. But
so the way I would read this is that would prohibit swim platforms on the back of a boat.
I don't read it that way.
Well, because anchoring systems, a swim platform that's anchored would be prohibited on the qualifying language because it has an anchoring system.
I don't think it. I noticed that when you created this language, and that did make me a little nervous. But the swim platform on a boat, many power boats and the pontoon boats, they have swim platforms on it, but they're part of the.
You want to suggest new language, Dan Terrell?
Well, no one's gonna, like Conrad, no one's gonna swim off the back. I think it should be anchored. No anchoring systems, anchored floats, or anchored swim platform. I think the key thing there is anchored.
Well, again, I'll come up with the counter to that. So it's a nice hot August day, and you just bought yourself an 8-foot by 8-foot blow up floating raft. Throw it in the water and go. I don't think we're not trying to prohibit that. It's permanent. I don't like the word permanent, but it's I don't know the right word to say. We don't want things that are going to be there permanently or for long periods of time. I mean, if someone comes down and puts the kayak in or puts a floaty in and wants to go out in the lake, we're not stopping that.
Okay, we might have to massage that language a little bit, Dan. Let me just time check us here because we start at 7:30. It's 9 o'clock. Are we prepared to go to a vote tonight, or is there any sentiment that we would welcome additional feedback or input or something that we may not have considered?
Well, due to the way this affects some people on the lake, do we need to postpone our final vote to the next meeting? And in the meantime, make sure that we get this wording proper?
I think for safety, and I don't mean safety, I meant like just to ensure that we have really got this language to an area where people understand by reading it what it is intended to do and what it's meant to do, and it's not subject to all of these exceptions and workarounds. I think that would at least be worthwhile. I do take, I think it was, not to mention names, but I remember who it was who was concerned that the language changed a little bit before we had the meeting. I don't really have any objection to publishing the final language in advance of the meeting. I mean, the reality is the language is going to change. It's not final until it's final, and that's why we have these dialogues.
But we
you don't. Otherwise, you would never get rules would never get passed, because every single word that changes, you'd have to redo a meeting and then redo a meeting and then redo a meeting and then redo a meeting. So that's not going to happen. But I do have some sympathy for not rushing this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it also gives a chance for any residents of that area who might not have known about this meeting to be able to come to any future public meeting we have about this. And I do think that sometimes getting language, massaging it takes a little bit more thought to make sure that we're not missing something.
Yeah, and I think we've been consistent on, at least I'm going to try to be consistent as a commissioner. We have to make decisions, unfortunately, and we want to make sure that we make the best decision. And even if that's not a popular decision, that's what we've been asked to do by the state under our charter. I think people who have worked with us long enough, we know we're trying very hard to accommodate as many people and smiling faces in the summer and winter as we can. It's just not possible to do it where everybody's happy every minute of the day. So we'll do our best to see if we can't come up with something here that works for everyone. However, I would tell everybody on this call, based upon this dialogue, it's unlikely that we're going to allow unfettered access in a free-for-all in Basin 4. So for those of you who have expressed concern to us over the years about what we're doing to protect that basin, I can tell you your voices have been heard for years. And so we're moving in the direction of protecting that basin. How we can protect it while accommodating new owners, we're going to work on it.
So Dan, I guess you're going to need a motion.
Can I just, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just had one other comment about the language here before we wrap it up today, if I could.
Please.
Yeah, so I think we need to clarify the last part about this prohibition does not apply to docks lawfully existing in Basin 4 as of the date of adoption. I'll give a couple of examples. One is I'm sorry, I forget the name of the person who has an existing dock. I'm guessing that it's not a Chapter 91 legally approved dock, but it's an existing dock. I think we need to respect that.
I think we're gonna say existing, Dan. I know where you're heading with this. We can.
Yeah. The second thing is that the Murphys went through considerable review over the past 2 years for their dock in Basin 4, which has now been approved both by the Stowe Conservation Commission and by, as of just a few days ago, by Chapter 91. And they haven't installed the dock yet, but I think, I think somehow this language needs to acknowledge that anything that has been legally approved or is existing or something like that.
Yeah. I tried to make that point at the very start of the meeting, but yeah, this language has to be, any existing or approved docks. And by the way, anybody who's listening to this call and you're in the process of getting your dock approved, you're covered. We're not.
I would just caution on that, Dan.
No, I meant we're not gonna. We just talked about the docks that are already in the approval. We're not going, if it's approved before this gets passed. I'm talking about something that gets approved before we vote on this.
Yeah, I just don't want anybody to just rush through, try to get through.
No, what I'm saying is if it's approved before we.
Full Chapter 91 approval.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say, Dan.
So, question. The wording of this law, of this bylaw, can we work on that not in a public meeting and then bring it back to a public meeting for approval?
Well, we're not allowed to have debate outside of a public meeting.
That's my point.
Which is why we massage the language in the meeting. But,
Okay.
but
You read my mind.
But as the chairman, I can suggest the language, and you can see that Dan is. I can suggest the language for the next meeting based on what Dan is typing, and then we can have another meeting to discuss it. But just to be clear, what we post doesn't have to be the ultimate rule. The ultimate rule can be decided sitting here right now. We could sit here and hash this out, but I think what's on the table now is we all are probably, at our limit at an hour and a half of discussing this, and we need to reflect.
Approval needs to say approval. You got it already approved, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion then that we table this for 1 week and that we reconvene as a Lake Boon Commission meeting. We don't need to do another public hearing, I don't believe. So I think we've met the requirement for a public comment and a public hearing. And, or we can, I don't mind just sitting here and hacking it out and voting on it.
No, well, you mean next week? Because I think I'm not ready. I do have some sympathy. I also want to hear some more from Lake Boon Association.
That means we're going to have another public hearing.
Well, it doesn't mean we have public meetings all the time. We don't have to have a hearing. We have to have a public meeting.
Well, yes, but I'm not. I don't have your.
We had the public. This is the public hearing.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. But does this qualify as the public hearing on this? Or if we open it up again a week from now or so, do we have to have another public hearing? Or we could.
Well, I don't know, Conrad. I don't know what I don't know because I want to get more feedback from the Lake Boon Association.
Okay, then let's postpone this for a week and have public comment.
Yeah, I feel like the Lake Boon Association has, and Red, I'm going to extend this to the healthy, the weed treatment and everything else. I just think that we've glossed over and took it for granted that everybody assumes that if we limit the movement in Basin 4 that the lake will be healthier, but I don't want to shortchange that discussion because I think that the amount of work that David Gray has put in this and Swirsky and Red, I feel like that was not, in my opinion, we should have weighted that a little bit more. Because I don't want people to come back and say, well, you don't want boaters in here. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that there's many facets to this decision making that very much includes not throwing algae throughout the lake and having sludge, throughout the lake and all of these other things that we're talking about. But I don't want this to be viewed as we're anti new homeowners or anti-new boaters or anything like that. I really want to make sure that every voice is heard and that we make the right decision. But my own sense of it was the Lake Boon Association was not as vocal as maybe I was.
Yeah. So let me suggest, Dan, that we in our next meeting that we officially invite the following representative parties: the Lake Boon Association, the Healthy Lake Boon Science Advisory Committee, the Hudson Conservation Commission, and also the Stowe Conservation Commission, because some of this land borders Stowe, to do presentations. We invite them to, and that be part of the scheduled agenda. But we also have a public meeting, a public portion, because we especially want to make sure that new residents have a chance, if they're concerned, have a chance to express their input. And I think I really want to say to the new residents, welcome. I mean, Lake Boon is a wonderful lake. I don't want to sound hypocritical in saying that we believe we need to make some restrictions here for the health of the lake and the good of everybody, including the people moving in. But also to say that, as with this, whatever we end up deciding here, we certainly welcome the new residents to our community. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you find pathways to get to lake in different ways. But I want to make sure that we're sort of expressing that welcome.
Yeah, I echo that for all the new homeowners. This is I want you to see the sausage being made, as they say. This is not an easy decision. It wasn't predetermined, and it wasn't on a whim, and it's not going to be on a whim. And we're going to take every bit of consideration that, you know, such a rule deserves. And I hope it's reflected in our dialogue. Everybody who had a public comment, we tried to address that during the debate portion. And if we didn't, we're going to get a second bite at the apple when more people come in. But as Dan Barstow just said, the idea here is to make the lake enjoyable and accessible for everyone, and not and do so in a way that unfortunately at certain times is going to encroach upon individuals' perceived freedoms, and we take that very seriously. So with that, is there anything else on this topic?
Not on this topic. You'll just send out an email for agenda items to go with the next meeting.
Yes, and I do appreciate in advance the people that Dan Barstow just mentioned. We appreciate in advance your participation more thoroughly in the next meeting. Very much valuable to us. The last thing I think that we had on was there any last minute agenda items not anticipated?
No, only that we should set, a date for our next meeting if we can.
I have one, and we can do it the next meeting, I guess. But we operate under orders and conditions from the two conservation commissions in terms of the lake water level, and we have conflicting requirements this year. I believe we're supposed to have the lake back to refill level at April 1, but we can't start refilling until the ice is out. With this winter, I think that we're going to have to, we won't make that April 1 date. Because if we start refilling the lake too soon, we're going to rip a lot of stuff up, because the ice is going to grab stuff and break it.
Yep.
We should put that on our next next meeting. So I think that's something that we need to address.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Conrad, but I think that actually the regs are that we start at ice out, no sooner than ice out, and finish as soon as we can, hopefully by April 1st or whatever the date is. So, but your point is well taken.
Go ahead, Debbie, because you know that rule.
All I was going to say is the Conservation Commission meets tomorrow night. So if somebody wants to come to the other business part of the Conservation Commission meeting tomorrow night, we can discuss it. And then we have another meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
So could, if I or somebody were to come to that meeting, would we have a chance to speak?
I'll put it into the other business at the end of the meeting.
If Conray and Dan Turow don't mind, I'd be willing to speak there.
That'd be great.
I'll just let Pam know and we'll put it in at the end of the meeting. Administrative business.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other items for discussion?
Only the date of the next meeting.
Do you want to send around some dates at work? I mean, I'm traveling all next week, and then after that, I'm pretty open.
So, what are your constraints? When are you away?
I'm gone for the next week.
So we should do it the week after?
Yeah.
So maybe, Tuesday, or maybe
Tuesday or Wednesday, 24th or 5th.
I think you mean 17th or 18th.
Oh, did I skip out one extra week? You're right, I did.
The 18th, the 18th works for me, Dan.
Okay, we'll go with the 18th.
Okay.
And we'll also, I'd like to recommend that we get this agenda out as soon as we can, and not just, the legally official and approved 2 days, but that we get out before then, just to make sure everybody has a chance.
Okay, great.
Motion to adjourn? I'm making a motion to adjourn.
I heard you. Dan, you want to second that?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for your leadership there, Dan.
Yep. Bye.
Right.